Welcome everyone to the TPA T5 training series. This is our third Thursday at 2 training series that we started pre-COVID. And today we have two special guests who are going to be describing to us the new USGBC Texas Best Practices app. So with that, let's move forward one slide. There we go. My name is Deb Taylor. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the Texas PACE Authority. Have been with TPA for about a year and a half. And before that, sort of served in two different areas for 20 plus years in the public sector, managing energy efficiency, technical engineering, and project financing for public entities. And prior to that, in the commercial real estate sector, property appraisal and property tax consulting. So the PACE business sort of brings together those two separate public and private sector worlds, and it's been an interesting year and a half and a lot of great progress in that time. Next slide, please. So for today's webinar, it's a webinar format, so everyone is muted and your video is disabled. So if you have questions, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen. If you're familiar with Zoom, it's right there, and use that. There's also a chat function, but we'll monitor the Q&A and answer any questions that come along. So please use that if you have questions, and then we'll have time at the end to respond to any questions that haven't been answered throughout the presentation. The webinar will be recorded, and we'll have it on our website and YouTube channel, and I believe that USGBC Texas will also have it on its website as well. And if you, this is not a formally registered training, but if you would like a PDH certificate emailed to you after attending today, I'll have my email there, and we can send that to you. Next slide. So I mentioned we've had these series of T5 webinars. This is the 14th, I believe, and these have covered all aspects of property assessed clean energy financing. As you can see, technical engineering, buildings and transportation, industrial energy efficiency. Most recently last month, taking a look at some changes to technical guidance and our program guide. And we will continue that on in 2022. So look for new webinars through our website and through our emails coming into the next year. Next slide. So our organization, the Texas PACE Authority, we're a nonprofit. We were created out of need, and that is that cities and counties that have created PACE programs determined pretty early that they did not want to create PACE departments to run those programs. So our organization really backstops cities and counties as a third-party administrator of PACE programs. That's all we do. We don't finance projects. We don't implement projects. We're not bond advisory or anything like that. We are PACE program administrators, and that's it. So we work with property owners, go back and forth on the projects they have in mind to help them ensure that what they are proposing meets all the requirements under state law for PACE. And then we work with their capital providers and service providers as well on the technical details of the projects. Next slide. And PACE is really growing. We now have, we serve 70 different local cities and counties across the state. The way that PACE is set up is that cities and counties have to adopt a PACE resolution, and that then makes PACE available in their jurisdiction. And so about 60% of the population of the state is now covered by a PACE program, including really all the major urban areas. Next slide. And a reminder, what is PACE about? Well, business owners and owners of buildings know inherently that they can save money over the long term by investing in energy and water savings upgrades and even upgrades or above code specifications in new construction. But these can be expensive, and also the payback, because our utility rates in Texas are still relatively low, can be very long. And so this is a disincentive, and especially when business property owners have limited budgets and priority needs for other things. So this results in failing equipment that gets replaced really on an emergency basis at a premium. Chillers and air conditioning systems go out in July. They don't go out in November. And so when it goes out in July, you may have a limited choice on what sort of equipment's available to you. And then this becomes kind of a piecemeal approach where the entire building then becomes less than optimized. And then you have temperature and moisture control issues, lower productivity in the case of manufacturing, and a lot of other challenges that ultimately cost the property owners money. Next slide. And so PACE stands for Property Assessed Clean Energy. This is a financing tool that really brings together what otherwise would be a private transaction and secures it through a governmental assessment that allows it to be repaid over a longer term. It's state authorized under state law, local government enabled, as I mentioned already, voluntary and open market, meaning that any property owner can access PACE if it is offered in their city or county area. Any contractor can do the work. Any lender can provide the financing. Any engineer that is qualified can do the third-party reviews, so there's no prescribed list. It's really just kind of a conduit, a facilitation mechanism, again, for really what's a private transaction. And in Texas, commercial properties are eligible, including nonprofits. The very first project in Texas was done at a synagogue, so houses of worship. This is a great fit. Multifamily, 5 units or more. No residential, no single family residential, and no residential smaller than 5 units. And then any sort of industrial or manufacturing or agricultural property is eligible as well. Next slide. And we've had good success. As you can see, $182 million of investment to date, really a hockey stick growth each year, even in spite of COVID last year and the uncertainty in the market. We had a number of projects close, and this year has really taken off as well. We have a few more in the pipeline that we expect to close by the end of this year. About a third in the commercial and retail sector, followed by hospitality, and then commercial office, the biggest wedges of that pie. And about half of the projects have involved energy efficiency measures, about a third water conservation, and 12% distributed generation. I believe all of those were solar photovoltaic, rooftop or otherwise. Next slide. So we really think PACE is a win-win-win. Property owners benefit by through lower utility bills, greater energy independence, resiliency, property value increase. For contractors, this is a way to keep a project with multiple elements to it as intact as a whole, and really be able to provide a solution versus an individual project for an owner. For lenders, it's a low risk loan product. For the state of Texas, for the public benefits, reduced peak demand for electricity, enhanced grid reliability. We're all more aware of that after last February. And then helping facilitate distributed generation as a means of sort of supplying on-site power versus being totally reliant on the infrastructure. And then as communities have adopted this, a lot of the driver has been as this is an economic development tool, improving building infrastructure and building stock, and adding overall value to communities. So really a win-win, win-win-win. Next slide. So I'm going to turn it over to our guest presenters today, and I'm like you are excited to hear what they have to say because I am not certainly familiar at all with the best practices app, but by the end of today I will be, and you will be too. So our presenters today, Nelson Spitz, he is the founder and president of Enterprise Real Estate Advisors, experience in brokerage and leasing services, tax reduction strategies, implementing and deployment of innovative technologies. And then David McLean, who's the current chair of the USGBC Texas Best Practices Committee. And he is going to dive deeply into this new tool and how you can employ this to your benefit in projects that you are in the design and implementation phase. So with that, I'm going to turn my camera and mic off and turn it over to Nelson and David, and we'll be eager to hear what they say, just like you. So thanks for joining us today, Nelson and David.
Thank you, Dob. I'm Nelson Spitz. I'm an expert real estate advisor. I help owners and occupants of commercial properties increase their cash flow, reduce their operating expenses, increase the asset value of their properties, and improve the health and prosperity of their buildings. And I'm a state board member of the Gulf Coast chapter of USGBC, the United States Green Building Council. And I was very much, I was actually recruited into being involved with USGBC by David about 5 years ago. And it's a voluntary organization with a lot of passionate people that are really interested in trying to make a dent and make a difference in the problems that we have in improving our environment and improving our built environment, both buildings that are being constructed and buildings that are existing. So anyway, I wanted to just say that we can change our future by what we're doing in the present. And the more we're aware of the impacts of the decisions that we're making,
Richard Nelson.
from muted. I'm sorry. Okay, I'll keep going. Anyway,
You're
we're
back.
offering,
We can hear you.
Okay, we're offering through USGBC the best practices champions an ability to offer guidance for property owners to engage in making sustainable improvements that foster health and prosperity, and also can improve the rate of return on the investment that you're making. And so we actually have best practice champions in various areas. And I'm a best practices. We kind of call it our superpower. I consider my superpower the ability to help owners focus in on how to optimize their financing, optimize their tax benefits, and optimize their incentives and rebates so that they can have low out-of-pocket investment and a high rate of return on their investment. And so the best practices app is a creation basically of David in helping the community to understand that we have a lot more information about how our buildings are performing and much more transparency to the people that are occupying them. And so we're giving them a tool to be able to measure one property against the other, or one development against the other, and how we can look at the social, economic, and governance, ESG abilities of a property to actually produce better prosperity and health within the built environment. So next slide, please. So like I said, we're a knowledgeable and passionate community that serves the building creators as well as the occupants. And we want to show the best practices on what's available today and how to take advantage of it. So anyway, this app was designed so that you can actually go into your pull up your app on your phone and input some information about improvements that you want to make or considering making, and look at the outcomes that we'll have on the community. So this can be we only have it on Android at this time, but we're working on trying to get an iOS version. But you can also access it on our website, the USGBC Best Practices website. There's a link. Anyway, hopefully I covered why I'm here, and I'll turn it over to David to tell you more details about what's in the app and how you can use it.
Thank you, Nelson. So a number of things have changed recently. What the app does is it helps us stop talking about the lowest first cost minimum code options. It allows us to look at not just what is the cost, but what is the worth of doing this. It's not about should we do sustainability, how should we do sustainability? And it allows us to compare and trade off design strategies, the best practices that we identify as designs, technologies, policies, and processes. Typically, a typical professional office building tenant business yearly operational costs consists of about 1% of its total spend on energy. And historically, and even now, we are kind of myopically focused on optimizing that for the building owners. To a building tenant, they really don't care about that. That's 1% of their yearly spend, and they care even less about it if they actually have to change behaviors. And as many real estate developers have pointed out, we are not going to build what the tenant doesn't want. 9% of their yearly operational cost goes to other rental costs, but 90% goes to staff and benefits. So the best practices app allows us not to just look at the energy cost savings of a particular best practice, but actually dig into the huge opportunity, the carry through that we can do with how we design, how we use technologies, how we bring in policies, how we bring in processes to benefit that 90%. That is where the tenant businesses live. If you can help them be more productive there, lower healthcare costs, increase retention, lower absenteeism, that's what they want to do. So we do this through a process of evaluating a whole lot of different project impacts and co-benefits. We use peer-reviewed literature. We put that through a valuation tool, and then we create the business case for each of those best practices. And this is done using local-based defaults. We always want to have shareholder buy-in and collaborative economic models that are proven worldwide, and move that out to a report that can create what I call decision-ready data. Data is of no use if it takes too long to get, or it's provided at the wrong time in a project decision. So the scenario moves through different design options. We put that through, look at the different costs and benefits, and then we throw it through the life cycle lens of not just financial, but also social and environmental, and we come up with what is a justified final design. So the best practices app. This is the interface. If you have an Android phone, Nelson had mentioned earlier that right now that is the only platform that we are on. We are in current conversations with branding partners to help us move that to both iOS and to a web-based version. Looking at this, we look here, the USGBC Texas Best Practices app. If you click on that, it links directly back to our USGBC Texas Best Practices website page, and you can learn all about how to become and what are best practice champions. You can learn about the app itself. If you don't have an Android phone, there's a link to a video that takes you through basically what I'm going to show you in the next few minutes. So you click on moving down, we have rotating ads, or we will have. The ads are not, these are not Google ads, these are specific ads by those that are in the built environment ecosystem that want to reach out and communicate with potential clients that are that work with us. Clicking on the Build Better Communities button takes you to the interface page. Now, in this app, we have modeled two buildings. We've modeled a middle school and we've modeled an office building. Both of those are located in Houston, Texas. And we have 6 current best practices: energy efficiency, water efficiency, outside air ventilation, filtration, HVAC controllability, and daylighting. So you just toggle between the two, and that takes you to the office or the school. And as soon as you click on one of the best practices, it will load the better data. So we have modeled a new school and a new office building in Houston, Texas, using minimum code, lowest first cost options. And then we have created a better and a best option for each of those. So if you click on if you check the box under energy efficiency, it automatically loads the better version. You can actually also just go over and click the best, and it will load that information below. Looking down here at the graphical interface, you'll see on the y-axis what the values are. If you click 0 is the baseline, that's the minimum code. So everything is in comparison to a minimum code building. And if you look down here, each of the buckets is identified across the social, environmental, and financial. And then at the far right, the total of each of those. Turning the, and I apologize for the quality of this, I just noticed this. If you turn your phone to the landscape mode, it becomes easier to read. This becomes even more critical when you start adding more best practices. So you can choose other best practices individually and look at those. And you can start checking them all together. And you can start comparing each of those. Are color coded. There's a scale down at the bottom, and that allows you to determine, you know, if you're going to spend money, if you have a certain amount of capex, where will the best bang happen for whoever you are, whether you're the building owner, you're the tenant business, or you're a student in school. So how do you maximize this information? And that's the key part of this. So here are two samples. I just, you know, checked everything on all of the available best practices. And we have 15 more best practices that we will roll out in 2022. So on the left, I've got everything's the better than minimum code, and then the other on the right is the best minimum code. And you can see the graphs below get pretty crowded. But if you turn them into landscape mode, you can start seeing where in each of the social, environmental, financial deals these start paying back. And it becomes pretty obvious when you do this analysis why building owners don't invest in stuff that doesn't have a financial payback, but has a huge impact from a profitability standpoint for the tenant business, and also the impact that it has on the environment or the community that has to deal with the burden when you choose not to do a best practice. So, all right, so you've walked through this, you've looked at each of these best practices, and you want to take this to the next step. How do I do that? If you click on the menu item up here on the left of the app, it takes you to this menus page. Home just takes you back where you came from. The best practices button takes you to the list of best practices that we have in the app at its current moment. Again, these are the 6 that we talked about earlier. If you click on one of those, let's take daylighting, for example, just click on that link. It takes you to the best practices detail, the name of it, how much better it is for the, you know, what percentage better it is for the better option, what the cap X is to actually get there. And then as that flows down through all of the options that are in the app. And then if you want to know more detail, you can click on the YouTube. And we are currently populating these with best practice champions, or are giving of their superpowers to help members of USGB Texas and other users of the app understand what daylighting is, why it's important. And then in each of those, I follow up with more detail on the triple bottom line cost benefit analysis that lays out the business case around the social, environmental, financial incomes. We come back out to committee. You can also access our best practice champions directly within the app. You can also do that on our website, but within the app, it lists those that are currently available. If you click on mine here, it takes you into more detail who I am. It talks about the superpowers, as Nelson had alluded to, those that I want. And if you want more detail on how to get a hold of me, you click on the Best Practice Champions link. That takes us to the portal on our webpage, where you can scroll through all of the current 69 best practices, or you can do an advanced search on a specific topic. If you just want to know about energy efficiency, you type in energy efficiency and it'll bring up the best practice champions, where that's their superpower, and you can learn from them exactly what it is they're prepared to give you. So just a little bit about the best practice champions. Best practice champions are champions because they have committed to giving of their talent and time to other members of USGBC and to school systems and to community-facing nonprofits that are trying to solve the problems that creators of buildings and communities have actually given them because of the lowest first cost, minimum code mentality that's pervasive throughout our ecosystem. So you can, if you want to know how to become a best practice champion, you can do that within the app, or you can go directly to the web page. You have to be a member to get a USGBC member to get access to the directory for free. Or if you're a school system or you're a community facing nonprofit trying to solve local community issues, you can get access free. Also, you just need to contact our executive director and ask for that. So, and the important part of, let's just go through this last one. So the last tab is about, if you go in there, it tells you more detail on exactly what the app intent was, which is really a consolidation of the first few slides that Nelson had in the background. It also gives you very detailed information on all the methodologies that were used, the assumptions and that information if you want to go there. And it also directs you back to how to become a best practice champion and move through that. So back to the interface, that is the app in a nutshell. A lot of information I went through really quickly, and I wanted to do that so that we could take some questions. The app is free currently in the iteration that we have it on the Android app. To become a sponsor or an ad sponsor on the site, that's currently $250 a year. And I think that's about it. Any questions?
David, we've got our attendees. If you could use the Q&A at the bottom, if you have questions, we'll take those and respond to those. Since I guess as the moderator, I'm unmuted and so forth. I do have a couple of questions after seeing this. Just to clarify for me, the first thing, so the graphs, I guess, when you go to the main menu and click on best practices, the graphs that you showed initially that showed the better and best scenarios, what the units on the y-axis are, what units are those? Are they
dollars? Everything's
dollars?
dollars. So,
Gotcha.
so this
Gotcha.
this
Okay.
whole, everything comes back to the cost benefit. And
Okay.
yeah, so everything, we don't have to, the beauty of this is we're always talking dollars. We're not talking, anything else.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I didn't catch that. I thought that's might have been what it was, but wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
The other thing, and this is more of a general question. So at what phase of discussion, design considerations, specification is the best time to employ and to use this best practices app?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And because this is conceptually new to most project teams, they haven't had a tool like this to be able to evaluate from an order of magnitude the benefit that would be available to a building owner or a tenant business.
Mm-hmm.
Really, the best time to have this conversation is up front, when you're saying, what's important to me? Is energy efficiency important to me, or is the environment important to me, or is, in reality, we all know the answer, is the profitability of my business important to me? And since the answer is almost always, I want to be in a building because I want to be profitable, anything that you can do that makes that space for that tenant business or for that school student better optimized, that's what you want to be looking at. So it's easier to do up front before all the designs get done. But you can look at this at any time through the process. I work with clients in all of this, and Nelson and I are working on the other end of this to kind of do forensic analysis of existing buildings that tenants might want to go into, and evaluate which building would be the best building for you to go in based on how it's designed, based on how it's operated, and based on what level of transparency and accountability to the tenant business there is in the space, particularly relevant given COVID and everybody's apprehension on occupant reentry.
Okay. Building on that a little bit, and this is in the context of PACE, as you may be aware, PACE can be used for new construction, assuming that the development is not on a greenfield site, that there has been a structure there before, the lot's considered developed, and we've seen PACE used for new construction. The key, though, is that the specifications for the project have to be at least 5% above minimum applicable energy code. And the questions that we've had in the case of some contractors and engineers is, what's the best way to model that? There's clearly modeling tools, but could this also be used, again, kind of for that scenario analysis on, I don't know, 5%, that may be even below your better scenario, but does that align in any way with addressing that need for new construction for PACE?
Yeah, so to meet the energy analysis threshold, these are static analysis. Okay, so the tool is the app as it is current configuration. It's not going to change from this. We're looking at a static office building, a static school. What you're talking about is doing a custom analysis, and so we have that capability to do a custom analysis across each of those. At the end of the day, I think you have to have an energy model, right?
Right.
Run.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So this tool's not an energy model. We can take the energy model. So if we want to look at not just energy efficiency from better HVAC, from envelope design, and then we can take into account daylighting, which has a huge impact on potentially saving lighting power. We can look at lighting controllability, HVAC controllability, better ventilation, better filtration, better individual comfort controllability. All of those things we can quantify against the energy model. And all of those things I just talked about play into making the building more potentially energy efficient, but have a huge impact. I mean, hundreds and sometimes thousands of orders of magnitude different than just going for a straight HVAC upgrade, right? And this is the power of this. We can use those other things that have a huge impact on the prosperity and health of the inhabitants. Those actually contribute to the energy savings, but pull through so much more.
Okay, great.
I just want to interject something. So as a real estate community, and I've spent all of my career being involving from a mindset of a real estate investor, owner, being involved in making commercial real estate work as a business. I think it's been brought to my attention within the last few years, and much more so now, that our community as a whole produces 40% of all the carbon emissions. Also produces 40% of all the energy consumption, and also consumes 40% of all the natural resources. So making a difference, making our community more aware of the impacts we're having, and also becoming aware that some of the things that we choose to put our money into can make a very big difference in the health and prosperity of the occupants and the society. We're here to educate about technologies and financing tools like PACE and tax saving strategies and all the things that enable projects to pencil out and make sense. And so, the app is more of a visualization tool to show people that are decision makers the impacts of what the decisions they're making, when right now they're just looking at costs, and that's not the only decision to be made.
David, if you can see, there is a question here. It's from Jonathan Kratz. You mentioned some of the development plans for the app. And the question is, what are some of the other metrics that will be added to the app in 2022?
Yeah, so I can't remember them all offhand, but we're obviously going to look at indoor air quality monitoring. That's important with respect to confidence reentry. More tenants are demanding transparency in ensuring that the spaces that they occupy are optimized for their health and for their business prosperity. So that level of transparency and accountability we have in the model, and we're ready to roll out an information video on that. We're looking at low impact design. We're looking at just doing different types of analysis. We're comparing different rating systems to one another along very specific best practices. What doing LEED or well or fit well, how would that benefit the occupant? And just to make a point here, I mean, most of what this app is related to is switching the conversation or giving the same data that is potentially available to developers and city planners directly to the inhabitants of the spaces. So they can start asking the creators of those buildings, which is what drives the creators doing something different, better places to live, learn, work, and play, making them safer, healthier, more efficient, obviously, and more prosperous for them. So there's, of the 15 that we're adding there, most of them are related to health, and most of them are related to looking at the social and environmental impact that we're not accounting for right now in these lowest first cost minimum code decisions.
Okay. Yeah.
We're also going to
Charlene,
be adding a sustainable finance portion that's going to look at PACE and look at the applying PACE in a project or just using cash, and the difference in the capital outlay and the payback period and that sort of thing. So we're going to try and use that as a visualization within the app as well.
Great. Nelson, this is Charlene Heidenger.
Hi, Charlene.
This app really appealed to me because I think there are a lot of property managers out there who understand kind of instinctively that they could save their owners money, but don't really know how to make that case to the owners. And I'm wondering if you guys see the app as a way that property managers can lay out the savings, lay out the environmental benefits. ESG investing is really important right now. So there's a public policy component that investors, owners of these buildings want to see. And I'm just hoping that this app can make it easier for these property managers to get the owners to understand why these investments make so much sense. And then they can look at PACE as a way to pay for it.
I think the key really is just getting more people aware. I think that they just really aren't aware of the things that they can do and the technologies that they can deploy. So yes, I think that that's why I jumped into getting involved in the best practices, because I think we really need a forum for people to be able to get guidance and become aware to show CFOs, CEOs, when they're making the decisions, what decisions they're actually impacting.
And it's a big jump from it's hard. It was harder than we thought it would be for building owners to be able to sell the benefits of doing something above minimum code. So there has to be a number of educational paths here. One for building owners to be able to differentiate themselves, be able to say, here's the standard offering, $25 a square foot is going to get you this level of controllability. It's like everybody else. But if you want to pay, $35 a square foot, or it's not even that much more, but would you look at a model where we went in and did a custom analysis for your space to see how we could actually have it designed to optimize your business's prosperity. So we have those conversations with, I have those conversations with architects and developers every day, but building owners have been challenged to figure out how to do exactly what you said, is sell those benefits to the to the team so that they could actually get that paid for by the tenant. There's the mechanisms need to be evaluated a little bit differently. I think the app is kind of, like Nelson said, is the first step to that. We provide full custom analysis around each individual space and business. So when these tools become more recognized as being an independent third-party analysis of tenants moving into spaces, we'll be able to actually do more with this. But it has to be done not just at the creator level, but also at the inhabitant level, so that everybody's becoming aware of this, and they are. I use these extensively with the world's largest architect firm. I'm using them with large municipalities. So this will become an expectation.
We had a couple more questions come in. First one in two parts. Where is the current app accessible?
Yeah, so it's Android only. So just go into Google Play and type it's the USGBC Texas Best Practices app. So if you type that out, you'll get to it, and it's free download. You don't have a password or anything to set up at this point. But you can also go to usgbctexas.org. and you can find the best practices or committee there. And under there, there's a number of those little Google buttons. You just click and it'll take you directly to where you need to go.
Okay, and you mentioned that there are iOS and web versions in development. When do you anticipate those might be available?
Yeah, so they're not in development yet.
Okay.
We're holding off until we have a branding partner. So on that landing page of the app, we want someone significant to come in and say, yes, I want to be the face of this, and I'm willing to pay the same. I'm willing to pay to get those upgraded. So MicMac CX funded this in whole to support. I'm the chair of the USGBC Texas Best Practices Committee. I've been chewing on this for 25 years to figure out a way to actually get this information out to accelerate the deployment of proven best practices, right? I mean, we don't have to invent another design, another technology, policy, or process. We have thousands and thousands of examples of their success around the world. We just need to figure out how to use the tools and evaluate the benefits so that we can make it happen every single time.
Okay. And last question I see here, are the data behind the modeled results available for scrutiny by owners, architects, engineers, et cetera, who may want to understand where the results are coming from?
Absolutely. You'll get a nosebleed with all the data that we can actually give you. I mean, it's what I've loaded in the app on the About page is really just the high level information that's been into it. We have documented methodologies, and we ask that any of our clients walk through each of those. It's painful. There's hundreds and hundreds of fields, but we walk through them to make sure that we have buy-in on it. But we tie into third-party databases. For example, if I go into the modeling tool and put in Houston, Texas, it automatically populates what the average cost of electricity is. I can override any of those with what the client is using, but it figures out from the way that the energy is produced here in Houston, the amount of NOx, SOx, equivalent CO2 that's produced. Same with water production. It knows based on databases that cities and municipalities have to provide just what the cost is and what that water quality is. So all that data is readily available. We use third-party independent databases, and then we put those through our methodologies. All of our methodologies are readily available for scrutiny. And if you don't like it, we can put whatever number you want in there. But my view on this is that if we're not talking about it, it's still happening. So for example, on energy efficiency. No, we talk about the greenhouse gases and the pollutions that comes off of it on how many cars come off the road or how many swimming pools we save or whatever. Nobody can relate to that. We put those into dollar amounts. This is the burden, greenhouse gases, and what the community has to pay by way of disaster cost and pollution, by healthcare costs. All of those methodologies are getting better all the day. We're not the only people doing this. So yes, absolutely available. All right, I see someone. What's the branding partner amount? Where that's a Jonathan Kratz question, our executive director. He's doing all of that negotiating on that. It's significant. Our branding ask is to move it from Android over to iOS and web-based, and to also fund an intern with the best practices committee to take this to the next step over the next 2 years. So if you're interested in finding out about that, I ask that you get in touch with our executive director and talk about what that package looks like. But thank you for asking.
Okay. And I think, yeah, there's Jonathan. He just put his email up. If you don't have it already, it's Jonathan, Jonathan @usgbctexas.org. Put it in the chat too. Thanks, Jonathan. Well, I think that's it for the questions I see. Any closing thoughts, comments, David or Nelson? We appreciate you being with us today. I think this is helpful. We'll have the recording both on the TPA website, and we'll also have it. It'll be on the USGBC Texas website, available there as well, if you have colleagues that weren't able to join us live today and would like to see this. David or Nelson, any closing thoughts before we end?
Just want to thank you for allowing us to present this to your community and be like a collaborative partner with USGBC on this. I think we can really do great things together. So thank you very much.
Yes, and I'll echo that, but also state that this is a one of a kind. First off, there's no app like this in the world right now. And we just won the Houston Climathon contest, top prize with this app, but it's a start, right? So any suggestions on how we might make it better, or if you want to be a best practice champion that helps us define the learning videos that will all be attached to this, please, we can use all the help we want.
Right. Right. Okay. Well, thank you all for joining us this afternoon, and David, Nelson, thank you for presenting, and hope everyone has a safe and enjoyable holiday season, and we will end for today. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you very much.